Good evening. You are watching The Digital Age. I'm Jim Zirin. Tonight we talk about advertising. Where has it been and where is it going? Have its core values changed? And has it been transformed by consumer-activated ads on the net? John Wanamaker, who founded one of America's first department stores in the late 19th century, was a visionary in marketing. He was noted, among other things, for a statement which is almost prophetic in terms of the ad game today. "I know half the money I spend on advertising is wasted," he said, "but I can never find out which half." With internet marketing serving a menu where the advertiser doesn't pay unless some interested party clicks on the ad, we enter a new era in digital advertising, with Google expected to take in $6.1 billion in ad revenue this year, and potentially none of the advertiser's dollar is wasted. Wanamaker would have been amazed. Which brings us to our question. Has advertising lost or found its way in the digital age? And here to discuss this interesting issue with us is another visionary, Peter Georgescu, Chairman Emeritus and former Chief Executive Officer of advertising powerhouse Young Rubicam. Peter Georgescu has written a dynamite book entitled The Source of Success, in which he reflects on his own life's experiences and prescribes 5 enduring principles by which the ad game can redeem its core values. Peter Georgescu, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a joy to be with you, Jim. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, thank you. Now, you come from a unique and fascinating background, and perhaps you can tell our viewers something about it.
Well, I'm not so sure about the unique part. You see, I'm an immigrant boy. I think most of us here are immigrants. I just happen to be an off-the-boat variety immigrant. I was born in Romania.
Franklin Roosevelt addressed the daughters of the American Revolution as my fellow immigrants.
There you go.
So you're in good company.
I'm in very good company. I was born in Romania during the war, and it was one of those extraordinary war stories where my parents were here in the States. My father used to work for an oil company, and he came to New York on a brief visit at the end of the war. And just as the Iron Curtain came down, and I came from a family of politicians and dignitaries, and my father had been in the government before himself, as the Iron Curtain came down, the communists took over Romania. He would have been killed had he returned to Romania. So in 1947, he decided to stay in the States. In fact, he had no choice. And my brother and I were living with our grandparents in Romania. My grandfather got arrested. He was an 80-year-old man, former governor or part of Romania. They killed him in one of the Romanian gulags a few years later. And my brother and I were taken into a work camp where we worked, 10, 12 hours a day for 6 days a week, hard labor, cleaning sewers, pretty horrible stuff. But then, fortunately for me, and that's why we're here talking tonight, the Russians and the Romanians decided to come to my father and said, "Look, you want to see those kids alive? You got to spy for us." And so my mother and father chatted for a day. It must have been absolutely excruciating, as you can imagine. But they had become by now, in 1953, American citizens. And they thought about it, and instead of going back to the diplomats, they went to the FBI, told them the story, and they said, "Look, you got to play with them. What choice do you have?" And my dad said, "No, I can't, because sooner or later they will kill the kids anyway." And so they came up with Plan B. And Plan B was to go public to the media and say, "Tell the story. Tell you've been blackmailed for the lives of your kids. And maybe they'll be embarrassed. They'll be so politically embarrassed to kill the children." And that's what they did. They went public. The media did their job. And along the way came one of my guardian angels in life. We all have them, you know, Jim. But this lady, Frances Payne Bolton, Congresswoman from Ohio, friend of Eisenhower, went to Ike and said, get those kids out of Romania. And as I understand it, President Eisenhower made a trade, and a couple of Russian spies went back to Russia, and my brother and I came to New York on April 13th, 1954.
Well, we won't miss them, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
So now at this point, you're a teenager, and you'd been in captivity how long? About 6 years?
About 6 years, yes, a little over 6 years.
And when you came to the United States in 1954, did you know English at all?
No, of course not. I didn't speak a word of English. But another wonderful thing happened, a little story, you know. There was, again, a media circus when we arrived at then Idlewild Airport. You know, hundreds of camera people, journalists, big brouhaha. And the principal of a wonderful school wrote my father and said, I'll do something for the young man. And so provided that he can learn English in 3 months, at least well enough to be able to communicate. And secondly, if he comes to this school, he's got to pass the courses on his own by the end of the year. So I went for dinner with this wonderful man at Exeter Academy in New Hampshire, and he liked me, fortunately. We're in. And fortunately, by the end of the first year, I also passed on my own. Not before setting a record, though. I got 8 straight zeros in my Algebra 2 classes until we figured out I didn't know how to divide. Once I learned that, the rest of my education career was pretty easy.
Well, they only had to teach you the difference between X and Y. But, Peter, then you go to Exeter, you finish Exeter, you go to Princeton, Stanford Business School, and you join Y&R and eventually become the chief executive officer. That's quite a record. Now, what was the secret of your success?
The secret of my success starts with America, Jim. That's why I'm such a fan of this country, both the values of this country and the opportunities you get in this country. What country on earth could an immigrant boy like me have the chance to succeed the way I have? So I really count my blessings.
Well, you're one of our blessings, and let's start, because this is the digital age, with the internet and how it's transformed the advertising world. Your book calls the internet the ultimate medium. It's a link, establishes a link which never existed before between the advertiser, the seller of goods or services, and the customer. What impact do you see the internet having on the advertising world?
Well, the internet is such an extraordinary medium. It is the first, and clearly it is and will become even more so, the most powerful medium in the world, because it is ubiquitous and because it's really very cheap for people to connect with the medium and for advertising to be able to play in this space. So the internet is extraordinarily powerful. And we're beginning to see, and I say beginning to see, you mentioned $6 billion that Google will gain as revenues this year. I think that's the embryonic stages of what we'll see in the internet. And that is importantly because right now the internet has not captivated the entire population of America and the world. We have a younger audiences, of course, people who are facile to work the computers, to be able to navigate through the internet protocols. And somewhere in the next 3 to 5 years, and I think I've said 3 to 5 years for the last 2 or 3 years, so my timing's a bit off, but somewhere in the reasonable near future, we're going to see the next internet revolution for advertising and commerce. And that internet revolution is going to come when a bunch of things begin to happen.
Well, we've had a revolution already, haven't we? Because in the advertising world in which you moved, if I were a Coca-Cola or a Ford Motor, I paid for an ad in a magazine or on television, whether anyone bought my product or not. And I might not even reach anyone who was interested in buying my product. Now I have a new kind of regime. I get an ad free on Google, and I only have to pay if someone clicks on the ad. Now this is a very dramatic change.
It's an extraordinary change, and I think what is happening in the world today if I may say, there are two major revolutions, so allow me a little bit of digression here, because the one revolution that we've seen is the digital age. The other revolution that we have seen is the extraordinary paradigm shift between an economy which was dominated by excess demand to an economy which today is dominated by excess supply. And in this world, all the rules of engagements have been changed. And now, in the excess supply world, most products are commodity products. And so the competition on price particularly is becoming ferocious, because the consumer looks at the shelves and says, hey, they all look the same, they all appear to be the same, they behave the same to me as a product or service. I'm going to shop on price. So being able to be different is critical. Advertising is going to become more important than ever, but advertising based on innovation, based on creativity, not only creativity in advertising, but creativity engineering products and services. So in fact, there is a difference that you can charge for, and you can convince the consumer that your difference really means something to them.
But the difference is, I suppose, that on Google, I'm not confronted with an array of products. I'm confronted with an array of products I'm interested in, and possibly specifically interested in. If I'm interested in a used car, maybe Google will serve up 3 used car dealers in my neighborhood, and then I can take it from there.
That's exactly.
This didn't exist before.
That's exactly right, and particularly on the internet, in the excess supply world, the customer is now king. The customer is in control. And this is something that most manufacturers find it difficult to deal with, because they always, for thousands of years, they were in control of the relationship between them and the products, because there was always more demand than supply. Now there isn't. So the providers have got to get used to being able to serve the customers, and that is to treat the customer as the lead dancer in this relationship. And so the customer now says, I'm only interested in cars now, and I'm not interested in buying Coca-Colas. So the advertisers have got to provide the consumer with that option. So opting in, consumer-activated communications is the way of the future.
Now, and this is just the beginning, because as it stands now, Google gets paid when the customer clicks on whatever the ad is. But in the future, there will be technology so that the customer gets a phone call from the used car dealer, and the advertiser doesn't have to pay unless and until the customer calls. And I guess the ultimate will be that the advertiser doesn't have to pay unless and until he makes a sale. Now, that is a complete revolution, isn't it?
Well, I think Jim Zirin is going to become the guru of the advertising business.
No, you're the guru.
No, you got it right. You got it right, Jim. You got it right. The ultimate game is a simple one. It goes back to 100-plus years to the day when the encyclopedia salesman put his foot in the door when the lady opened the door, said, may I help you? And tried to say, yes, I have a great idea for you. Here's a set of books you're going to love and your family's going to love. So advertising has really now got to convince the customer, but all the way to the sales point. And I think that's the real end game, when in fact you relate communication to the actual sale.
Now, there has also arisen something called click fraud. Because there are a lot of bogus clicks on an ad from people who aren't interested. For example, a competitor could click on an ad in order to run up the advertising expenditures of someone with whom he was in competition.
Well, in the embryonic stages of development, we're going to have all kinds of shenanigans, and they will clearly very quickly disappear. And whether we get paid for clicks or not, the point is that the consumer will activate an interest in a particular product or service. They'll go there, they'll learn about the product, and if they want to make a decision to buy, it's not just a click. You can get much closer to the actual transaction. But part of what the internet has got to provide, and this is when the next internet revolution will happen, when we can have the broadband necessary to have complete interactivity, when there will be a lot more convergence. Because a lot of America are not going to sit in front of their computer screens and look at their entertainment and get information from the computer screen. This is the older America. They'll use a television set or a PA or something. The technology is there for that to exist right around the corner. And so at that time, businesses will have to be able to provide fulfillment for a transaction based on an internet action. Because you can go through a communication protocol and get somebody convinced, but then why not be able to push a button and say, okay, I want it now. Well, but then business has got to be able to deliver. And that's not a simple task.
Well, John Wanamaker had it right 100 years into the future because he said he would like to see a time where none of the advertising dollar was wasted. Do you, looking ahead 100 years, 50 years, do you see that the net will kill print advertising? Will it kill advertising on television? Will all ads be interactive?
I believe that 100 years from now we'll have certainly a lot more interactivity. Whether it's all going to be on the internet or not, who knows? But we think of television in today's terms. In tomorrow's terms, television may be, again, also very different. Will be much more on demand. I want the product. I want the program I like when I want it. It may be the place that I want to see it in.
Yes. Now, your book looks into the future, and you emphasize something which you have a whole chapter on called creativity. You describe that as the workhorse of the 21st century. Well, what is creativity, and where is it to be found?
You see, at the end of the day, whether you're talking about being able to click on an ad or not, at the end of the day, you still have to convince somebody to purchase a product or a service. So the creative aspect of it, it's still there. And as I mentioned, in the world of the excess supply economy, the providers have got to create innovations on a sustained basis. You don't get away with inventing something today and rest for the next decade. You have to have sustained, institutionalized creativity in all the products and services you provide, as well as the communication that you show the consumers. So creativity is going to be the great differentiator between success and failure. In fact, it's the only leverageable asset on a company's balance sheet. Everything else is a commodity. Only the creativity in the human mind will provide the real difference between winners and losers in the future.
Well, you undoubtedly knew Jock Elliott, who was the deceased CEO of Ogilvy and Mather, just died, and he once said to his group, "Big ideas are hard to recognize, so fragile, so easy to kill. Don't forget that, all of you who don't have them." Do you agree with that approach?
Yes, I do agree with that, because, the magical thing about creativity is, in hindsight, an innovation and a creative act always looks simple and logical in hindsight. But if you look at it prospectively, it looks absolutely strange, different, and full of risk. And that's because a creative act is a form of discontinuity. The reason you hardly ever get to a brilliant creative act prospectively is because you need to sidestep, to have some lateral thinking, to be able to create, as I said, this continuity, to use patterns to get to a fresh new way of looking at a problem, whether it's advertising or a product development or a new product or a product feature.
Now, you created the ad slogan, the softer side of Sears, terribly successful as an advertising program. Is that the kind of big idea that will still be room for in the digital age?
Absolutely. 5 simple words that added probably a couple $2 billion worth of market cap to Sears and an extraordinary amount in $500 million plus in profits. An extraordinary thing. And it was 5 simple words. But nothing about creativity of any kind is simple. Creativity in business requires tremendous discipline and rigor. It requires the understanding of now. before you can go to the future constructively, you have to understand what it is today. And then you have to leapfrog that to a new and different solution. And that process is a very, very rigorous act.
Well, discipline and rigor brings us to the next element you discuss in your book, as it happens, which is leadership. And one has the image of the old CEO with his eye on the bottom line, who's driving everyone to improve revenues and improve profits. Is that the CEO of the future?
Not at all. That guy, and usually it's been the guy, the old bully.
That wasn't you, by the way.
Fortunately not. Fortunately not. I came in just at the right time. I avoided that trap. But, you know, the old tyrant, he's gone. He's dead. He's gone. And you know, there was a time when being that kind of a tough boss and even mean-spirited perhaps made sense in a manufacturing age when humans were really used as robots. The more they did was better. The faster they did, it was better. The same was better. Don't think, just do. Well, in today's digital age, all of that has changed. Every employee in an organization now is likely to interface with a customer. And every employee now is a creative contributor to the enterprise's ultimate success. So what we need today is an enlightened leader that creates the environment where creativity can take place. The I word loses power. It's about we. It's about teamwork. It's about collaboration. Take your ego, Mr. Leader, and put it in your pocket. Give credit to all your colleagues. You have power. You want to succeed. Don't ever use your power. That's the magic.
The government is best that governs least.
Always.
Always. Now, you used that technique very effectively at Weinart, didn't you?
Well, we had a pretty good run. And again, the serious fact is that we had an extraordinary amount of very talented people who deserve the credit, that we were able to meld as a team and work together with our clients to produce extraordinary results for our clients. And we were innovative. We changed the rules of the game of how advertising, in fact, was produced on behalf of our clients. We used database marketing, public relations, advertising in a full, complete, integrated solution to sell a product, which was novel in our time.
Well, and you also changed the pricing structure, didn't you, where the agency would share profits with the customer.
Yes.
And it wasn't just on a basis of a percentage of advertising that was placed. Isn't that right?
I always felt that a commission-based compensation was a bit cancerous, because every time you went to a client and said, you need to spend more money, the client says, yeah, so you can make more profit. And so, besides, you know, in the new excess supply world, there's only one way costs go. It's never up. So there was a new way, a new basis for a contract with clients. And I thought that the real transparent thing is to say, if you succeed, we succeed. So we can only succeed if we can create something positive in the marketplace for our clients. So someday, so people say you can't do it, you can't this. So one day I was having lunch with a client, and I asked him, I said, what's your compensation based on? And he said, well, I get a base salary. That's not the best part. The best part is if I increase revenue, I get so much more bonus. If I increase profit, so much more of a bonus. And then if my stock price goes up, I get an extra super duper bonus. I said, I'll take that deal.
Right.
And that's what we did, and created a structure around the same basis, and it's called alignment. Aligning our interests between the agency and the client together to produce results.
Now, you write that network television is destroying itself. I hope it doesn't destroy itself before this program airs. But why do you think it's destroying itself, and what's to be done about it? Or should anything be done about it?
Well, I think that increasingly we're seeing strong attempts by the networks to improve the quality of the programming. For a long time, the viewer never had a seat at the table with the producers, that the studio was always ahead of the viewer. That was the creative talent producing the shows. And to a large degree, the networks became repositories for shows to be push forward to the consumers. Today, the viewers are in control, and I think the networks are getting more sensitive. The problem I have today is too much clutter. There are too many commercials. This is the ad guy speaking. Too many commercials. The human mind can only register remember so many things. That's why the telephone number of 7 digits is about all we can remember. More than that, forget it. If you look for an hour of the number of commercials you have to watch, the television power as a commercial vehicle is losing its force. And so we have to, I think, in one form or another, reduce the number of commercials we watch on television.
The other area that is so vitally important, according to the thesis of your book, are values. Now, you sit on the board of a number of corporations. You were CEO of Y&R. What do you see as, have we lost our way? What do you see as the proper core values of American business?
I don't think we've lost our way. I think most of the people in business are very honest, good people. And that's the reality of life. I think we are appropriately taking the people who create the excesses, the bullies, the thieves, and so forth, and to some degree hanging them euphemistically in the public square. And I think that's a good thing. I think we need to prosecute those who commit those kinds of crimes. But it's not the norm. The norm is honesty in business, by and large, is what people get from most businessmen. However, values is so absolutely critical in an organization because to develop a creating environment for employees, you need to have a relationship of trust with your employees. And trust and respect comes from basic values. And brands in the digital age are the winning formula. And a brand is a relationship. So you don't only have to treat your employees well. Most importantly, you have to treat your customers well. You've got to respect your customers. All of that means you have to be a person of values. So the human person that always used to go home at 5 o'clock to love his wife and family needs to show up at the office. The same person needs to show up at the office with the same set of values.
Well, I think we have to wrap up, and it's time for our question, Peter Georgescu. And our question is, has advertising lost or found its way in the digital age?
Advertising will have found its way in the digital age in a magnificent way. And I think Mr. Wanamaker will be extraordinarily proud of the business that, in fact, built his business.
Peter Georgescu, thank you so much for coming by.
It's a pleasure to have been with you, Jim.
And thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more on the digital age. I'm Jim Zirin. Good night.